Welcome to Chilling Folktales, where tiger hunts, sacred forest legends, and blood-soaked myths are retold in a raw, honest voice with real breath and real soul. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep the fire alive and ring the bell so you never miss these eerie stories. Where the line between human and forest is only one breath away. You step forward as dawn breaks, but the morning gives you no warmth, only a pale, diluted light, struggling through a curtain of fog so thick it feels almost solid, as if the forest itself has decided to block the world from seeing what lies inside. Each step you take sinks softly into wet leaves, and the sound is swallowed immediately, leaving you with the unsettling feeling that the ground is listening but refusing to answer. This is your homeland, a place you once knew by heart, yet today it feels altered, heavier, as though time here has slowed down on purpose to watch you arrive. The fog wraps around your legs first, then your waist, then your chest, until it feels like you are walking through a dream that does not belong to you. Trees rise on either side, their trunks dark with moisture, their branches disappearing into the white above like broken thoughts. Somewhere deeper in the forest, water drips steadily, a patient, endless sound that marks time far more honestly than any clock ever could. You breathe in, and the air tastes of soil, old leaves, and something faintly metallic. A smell you cannot quite name but instinctively distrust. You pause, listening. There are no birds greeting the morning, no insects humming awake. The forest is not asleep, it is alert. That silence presses against your ears until you become painfully aware of your own heartbeat, steady but loud, a traitorous drum announcing that you are here, that you are human, that you are alive. You remember what the elders used to say, that when the forest goes quiet, it is because something else has claimed the right to make noise. You move again, slower now, each step deliberate, careful not to rush, because rushing in this place has always been a mistake. The path you follow is barely a path at all, just a faint depression in the earth where generations of feet once passed, back when the forest still allowed people to come and go without keeping count. Now even this narrow trail feels reluctant, as if it might vanish the moment you stop looking at it. As you walk, memories surface uninvited. You remember being a child, running barefoot along these edges, laughing, careless, believing the stories about tigers were meant only to scare children into behaving. Back then, the forest felt big but familiar, a place of rules you did not fully understand but trusted nonetheless. Today, that trust feels naive. The trees look the same, yet something essential has shifted, like a face you recognize but can no longer read. The fog thickens as the sun climbs higher, stubbornly refusing to burn it away. Instead, the light scatters, turning everything into shades of gray and muted green. Shapes lose their edges, distance becomes a lie. A tree 10 steps away could be 100, and you would not know the difference. You realize how easy it would be to walk in circles here, to believe you are moving forward, while the forest quietly guides you back to where you started. A chill runs through you, not from the cold but from understanding. This is how people get lost without ever leaving home. You stop again when you notice it, the first sign that you are no longer alone. It is subtle, almost polite. A disturbance in the mud beside the path, too deep and too deliberate to belong to deer or wild boar. You crouch slowly, feeling the damp seep into your clothes, and look closer. The print is large, rounded. The edges softened slightly by moisture, but unmistakable. A tiger's paw pressed into the earth with a confidence that suggests it was never in a hurry. You swallow, your throat suddenly dry. The print is fresh. The fog has not had time to blur it away. Whatever made it pass through not long ago, perhaps minutes, perhaps seconds. In this forest, time refuses to explain itself. You straighten carefully, resisting the urge to look around too quickly. Panic, is louder than footsteps. You force your breathing to slow, in through the nose, out through the mouth, just as you were taught. Still, your eyes scan the fog instinctively, searching for movement, for color, for the faintest shift that does not belong. Nothing moves. That absence feels deliberate. As you continue, the weight of the forest settles deeper into your chest. You begin to understand why the villagers no longer walk this path in the morning, why they avoid speaking of the forest at this hour. Morning here is not a beginning. It is a continuation of whatever survived the night. Your thoughts drift to the reason you came back, the unspoken agreement you made with yourself when you decided not to turn away. The village has been living in fear. Not the sharp, sudden fear of storms or floods, but a slow, grinding dread that seeps into daily life and changes how people sleep, how they speak, how they listen. Livestock gone, paths avoided. A man who did not come home one evening, his name now spoken only after a pause. They say the tiger has returned. Not just any tiger, but an old one, scarred and patient. A creature that remembers. The elders whisper another word too, when they think no one younger is listening. Vengeance. You push that thought aside as you walk, but it clings to you like the damp, refusing to be ignored. The forest seems to narrow, trees leaning inward, branches knitting together overhead until the sky is nothing more than a pale blur. You feel smaller here, not physically, but in a way that reminds you how easily the forest could erase you without effort or emotion. A faint sound reaches you then, barely more than a suggestion. A low exhale that might be wind passing through leaves, except there is no wind. You stop, every muscle tensing, your senses sharpening despite yourself. The sound comes again, closer this time, then fades. Your mind races through possibilities, none of them comforting. You remember another old saying, one your grandmother used to repeat while staring into the fire late at night. When you hear the forest breathe, it is already too close to explain itself. You stand there for a long moment, caught between instinct and pride, between the urge to turn back and the knowledge that turning back will not undo what has already begun. The fog curls around your shoulders like a hand urging you forward, and you take another step, then another, deeper into the place where stories stop being stories. Somewhere ahead, unseen and unhurried, something else is moving through the same fog, aware of you in a way that makes your presence feel loud and clumsy. The forest does not warn you. It never does. It simply watches, patient as memory, as you walk on, unaware that this first morning is already counting as a debt. And in that silence, with your footprints filling slowly with mist behind you, the hunt does not begin with a roar or a charge, but with a quiet understanding, shared between you and the unseen eyes in the fog, that neither of you came here by accident. You reach the edge of the village as the fog begins to thin, not because the day has grown braver, but because the forest has decided it has watched you enough for now. Houses appear one by one, wooden walls darkened by years of damp air and smoke. Roofs crouch low as if even they are trying not to be seen. This place has always existed in the shadow of the trees, but today that shadow feels heavier, pressed closer, as though the forest has leaned in to listen. People notice you before they greet you. Eyes follow first, cautious, measuring, then faces turn away too quickly, as if looking at you for too long might invite trouble. You recognize many of them, though time has thinned their hair and carved deeper lines into their faces. These are the same people who once laughed loudly in the evenings, who argued openly, who trusted the night to pass without consequence. Now their voices are lower, their movements smaller, like animals that have learned the cost of being noticed. You stop near the old banyan tree at the center of the village, its roots thick and twisted, gripping the earth with the patience of something that has seen generations come and go. Beneath it, a few elders sit on low stools, their backs bent, their eyes sharp despite their age. They look at you for a long moment before anyone speaks, and in that pause you feel the weight of why you have returned, settling onto your shoulders like a familiar but unwelcome cloak. One of them gestures for you to sit. You do, feeling the rough wood beneath you, the cool air brushing your skin. No one rushes to speak. In this village, silence has become a form of respect, a way of acknowledging that some things deserve space before they are named. Finally, an old man clears his throat. His voice, when it comes, is thin but steady, worn smooth by years of telling truths people would rather avoid. He does not ask why you are here. He already knows. It started quietly, he says, staring past you toward the line of trees. That's how it always starts. You listen as he speaks of the first death, careful with his words, not for drama, but because saying too much too quickly feels dangerous. A man went out one evening to check his traps. Just beyond the fields where the forest begins to tighten, he was experienced, cautious, someone who knew the land well enough to feel safe. He did not return. At first, they assumed the usual things: a twisted ankle, a night spent sheltering from rain. But when morning came and the fog lifted just enough to show the path empty, worry crept in. By afternoon, it had settled deep in their chests. They found him near the stream, what remained of him. The old man does not describe it in detail. He does not need to. The way his hands tremble slightly as he speaks tells you everything. This was not a quick kill, not a desperate act. It was precise, intentional. Others add to the story, voices overlapping carefully, like people afraid to speak out of turn even now. They talk about the marks on the ground, the way the earth was pressed down as if by something heavy and unhurried. They talk about how little was eaten, how the body seemed almost arranged. That is when someone else says it, quietly, reluctantly, as though the word itself might bite back. "Not hunger," a woman murmurs. That wasn't hunger. You feel a chill move through you, sharper than the morning air. You have heard this before, in stories told by firelight, dismissed by daylight. A tiger that kills not to feed, but to answer something. A memory, a grievance. They tell you the deaths did not stop there. Livestock vanished next, taken from pens too close to the forest edge. Goats dragged away without a sound. A buffalo found days later, half hidden in brush, untouched except for the throat. Each incident followed the same pattern, the same unsettling restraint. And then another man did not come home. This one was younger, careful. He carried a blade and a torch. He knew the risks and believed preparation was enough. They found his footprints first, leading toward the forest, then stopping abruptly, as if the ground itself had swallowed him. When they found him, it was farther in than anyone expected, deeper than fear should have allowed him to go. As the stories pile up, you notice how often the elders glance toward the trees, how their eyes linger there as if expecting something to step out at any moment. You realize this is not just fear of an animal. This is fear of a presence, something that has reasserted itself after years of silence. Someone mentions the old tiger, the one that was wounded long ago, the one that disappeared instead of dying. They say it learned something in that pain, something that made it different from the others. Smarter, patient, capable of remembering faces, paths, patterns. Another voice, softer, almost apologetic, speaks of an older story still. A time when a hunter killed a tiger near the sacred grove, ignoring the warnings, ignoring the offerings that should have been made. They say the forest never truly forgave that act, only waited. You sit there, absorbing it all, feeling the slow tightening in your chest. You are not here to judge their beliefs, but you cannot dismiss them either. In places like this, belief and survival have always shared the same roots. A child passes by, glancing at you with wide eyes before being pulled away by a nervous mother. You catch fragments of whispers, warnings not to wander, instructions to stay close, to come home before dusk. The village has reorganized itself around fear, reshaping daily life to accommodate the unseen. As the sun climbs higher, the fog retreats reluctantly, revealing the forest's edge in clearer detail. From here, it looks deceptively calm. Leaves barely stir. Shadows lie still. You understand why people who do not live here might doubt these stories, might call them exaggerations or excuses. But standing among these people, feeling the tension coiled through the air, you know better. One of the elders looks directly at you then, his gaze steady, searching. "You've walked the forest this morning," he says. "You felt it, didn't you?" You nod. Slowly. Words feel unnecessary. He exhales a long, tired sound. Then you understand why we called for help. Not just any help. Yours. There is no flattery in his voice. Only expectation and a trace of desperation. They do not see you as a hero, and that almost makes it worse. They see you as someone who might be able to listen to the forest without challenging it too loudly. You ask when it last appeared, when anyone saw it clearly. The answers are vague, inconsistent. Some say at dusk. Others swear it moves only in fog. A few claim they have seen its eyes, watching from just beyond the fields, low and steady, not glowing with rage, but with something closer to recognition. As the conversation winds down, you feel the weight of what lies ahead settling more firmly into place. This is no simple hunt, no straightforward problem to be solved with skill alone. Whatever has returned to this forest has brought history with it, and history does not leave easily. You stand to leave, and the elders rise slowly as well, their movements stiff but deliberate. One of them reaches out, gripping your arm with surprising strength. "Remember," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, "this forest does not forget who takes from it, or why." You walk away from the banyan tree, the village behind you murmuring softly as people return to their routines, if they can still be called that. The path back toward the forest edge waits, unchanged, indifferent. As you step toward it, you realize something with a clarity that tightens your stomach. The deaths were not the beginning. They were the announcement. And somewhere beyond the trees, in the quiet that feels too deliberate to be empty, the old tiger is not hiding. It is waiting, certain that sooner or later, you will walk back into its memory. You return to the forest edge alone, leaving behind the low murmur of the village. And with every step away from human voices, the world narrows again into damp earth, pale light, and that uneasy quiet that never feels accidental. The fog has thinned but not vanished. It hangs low, drifting between tree trunks like a thought that refuses to settle. And you realize this half-clarity is worse than blindness, because it tempts you to trust what you can see. You follow the stream the villagers mentioned, its water dark and slow, carrying fallen leaves in lazy circles as if unsure where to go next. The banks are soft here, the mud thick and heavy, perfect for holding secrets. You move carefully, eyes scanning the ground more than the trees, because this forest speaks first through its floor. It does not announce danger from above. It records it below. Then you see them, claw marks, deeper than the ones you found earlier, pressed into the mud near the water's edge. You crouch, ignoring the cold seeping into your knees, and study them closely. These are not the chaotic impressions of a chase. They are spaced evenly, deliberately, as if whatever made them was walking, not running. The depth tells you about weight, about confidence, about an animal that did not feel the need to rush. You trace the marks with your eyes and feel a strange unease settle in. This tiger was not driven by panic or hunger. It moved like it owned the ground beneath it, like the forest was not a place it lived in, but something it embodied. You remember the villagers' words, the ones spoken reluctantly, the belief in tigers that killed to answer a wrong rather than to fill a stomach. Back when you were younger, you dismissed those stories as ways to explain fear, to give meaning to loss. Now, crouched in the mud with fresh evidence inches from your hands, the idea feels less like superstition and more like observation refined by generations of survival. The claw marks lead away from the stream, into thicker undergrowth where branches knit together and light fades quickly. You hesitate before following, listening, testing the air. The forest offers no reassurance. It never does. It only allows or denies. As you move deeper, the ground changes beneath your feet. The soil becomes firmer, scattered with stones and old roots that twist up like veins. Here, the tiger's tracks are harder to see, but not gone. You spot faint disturbances, broken leaves, pressed grass, signs that require patience to read. Whoever taught this tiger to move taught it well, or perhaps it taught itself, adapting over years of being hunted and surviving. Your thoughts drift to the idea of vengeance again, the way the elders spoke of it, not as a dramatic curse, but as a rule. In the forest, balance is not symbolic, it is practical. When something is taken improperly, something else responds. Sometimes that response takes years. Sometimes it waits for the right person. You reach a clearing small enough to feel accidental, as though the trees briefly step back from one another out of curiosity. In the center, the ground is disturbed, scuffed in a way that tells a quiet story. Something stood here for a long time. Something heavy. You can almost picture it. Muscles coiled beneath striped fur, head lifted, listening. A shiver runs through you as you realize this might be where the tiger watched the village. Not close enough to be seen, not far enough to be disconnected. A place of observation, not ambush. You straighten slowly, scanning the perimeter. The forest looks unchanged, indifferent, but you feel exposed here. like a thought spoken aloud. You step back toward the trees, instinct guiding you before logic catches up. As soon as you do, the feeling eases slightly, as if the forest prefers you hidden, contained, smaller. Further along, you find something else, something that tightens your jaw. Scratches on a tree trunk, higher than you expect, angled and deliberate. These are not marks made in passing. They are messages. A tiger's way of announcing itself, of saying this ground is claimed. You stand there, hand resting against the rough bark, and feel the weight of that claim. This is not random violence spreading outward. This is territory being reasserted, rules being enforced. The villager's fear begins to make a different kind of sense, not as panic but as recognition. You think of the old story again. The hunter who ignored warnings, who killed near the sacred grove without offering respect. If this tiger carries memory, if it learned to associate humans with pain and loss, then every step you take now is part of a much older conversation. A sound breaks your thoughts, faint but unmistakable. Not a growl, not a roar. Just the soft crunch of something shifting its weight somewhere beyond the trees. Your muscles tense instantly, breath catching before you force it to steady. You do not turn. Turning too fast feels like an invitation. The sound comes again, closer this time, then stops. You realize with a cold clarity that this tiger does not need to chase. It knows you are here. It knows you are paying attention. This is not a warning. It is confirmation. Slowly, you back away, careful to place your feet where they will not snap twigs or slide on stone. Every instinct tells you to leave, to return to the village and gather others. But another voice inside you, quieter and more dangerous, urges patience. You are being measured, just as you measured the tracks. When you finally reach the edge of the clearing, the pressure lifts slightly, like a hand loosening from your chest. You keep moving until the trees thin and the forest feels less intent on you. Only then do you allow yourself to breathe fully. As you walk back, the marks replay in your mind, the even spacing, the deliberate scratches, the stillness of that hidden clearing. This tiger is not reacting. It is deciding. By the time the village comes back into view, you understand something you did not when you entered the forest that morning. This is not a hunt that begins with pursuit. It begins with recognition. And somewhere behind you, unseen and unhurried, the old tiger continues to move through the forest, fully aware that you have learned how to read its language, and that from this moment on, every step either of you takes will carry meaning far beyond survival. You find him where the forest loosens its grip just enough to allow a man to exist without feeling completely borrowed. A small shelter of weathered wood and palm leaves standing at the edge of the trees like a truce that could be broken at any moment. Smoke rises thin and blue from a low fire, curling upward before dissolving into the afternoon air. And you know, before you see his face, that this is not a man who lives here by accident. He does not look surprised when you approach. In fact, he does not look up at all at first. He continues sharpening a long knife with slow, even strokes, the sound steady and rhythmic, as if he has learned to measure time by repetition rather than hours. Only when you stop a few steps away does he raise his eyes, and when he does, you feel something tighten in your chest. These are not the eyes of a reckless hunter or a proud one. They are calm, alert, and tired in a way that has nothing to do with age. This is the look of someone who has been very close to dying and has not bothered pretending otherwise since. "You followed the tracks," he says, his voice low. Matter of fact, not a question. You nod, surprised despite yourself. He sets the knife aside and gestures for you to sit on a fallen log near the fire. As you do, you notice the scars on his hands, thin white lines crossing old, darker ones, a map of mistakes and survivals written directly onto skin. He introduces himself only after a pause, giving his name the way one offers a tool rather than an identity. Around here, names matter less than reputation, and his reputation has already reached you through the villagers' careful words. This is the man who lived. You ask him about the encounter, and for a moment you think he might refuse. He stares into the fire, watching the embers shift and glow. And when he finally speaks, it is without drama, without the need to impress. It didn't rush, he says. That's what people don't understand. A hungry tiger charges. This one didn't. He tells you about the night he met it, how the fog was thick enough to erase distance, how the forest felt compressed, as if everything were happening inside a closed room. He had been tracking signs near the old grove, ignoring the unease in his gut because experience had taught him confidence, and confidence had taught him arrogance. He heard it before he saw it. Not a roar, but a breath. Slow and controlled, close enough to feel on his skin. When it stepped into view, it did not attack. It stood there, massive and still, its eyes fixed on him with an intensity that felt uncomfortably human. "I realized then," he says quietly, "that it wasn't deciding how to kill me. It was deciding whether I was worth killing." The fire crackles softly as he speaks, and you imagine that moment. The weight of those eyes, the forest holding its breath. He tells you he raised his weapon slowly, not to fire, but to show readiness. The tiger tilted its head, watching, learning. Then it moved, not forward, to the side, circling. He describes the blur of motion, the sudden pressure, the sound of his own blood in his ears. The tiger struck once, not to kill but to remind, its claws tearing through flesh with terrifying precision before it vanished back into the fog as quickly as it had appeared. He lived because the tiger allowed it. As he finishes, silence settles between you, thick, but not uncomfortable. You realize he is not proud of surviving. He is burdened by it. You think it's cursed, you say, not accusing, simply stating what hangs unspoken between you. He looks at you then, really looks. And for the first time you see something flicker behind his calm. Not fear, respect. "I think it remembers," he replies. "And I think it wants to be remembered." He tells you something he has never said aloud before, something he only understood after weeks of replaying the encounter in his mind. The tiger could have killed him easily. It chose not to. That choice, he believes, was intentional, a message sent back to the village through his body, a warning wrapped in mercy. "You came back anyway," he says, studying your face. "So you already know this isn't about skill. You admit that much." He nods slowly, as if confirming something he suspected. "Before you leave," he reaches into the shelter and pulls out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside is a strip of faded red fabric, stiff with age, marked with symbols you half recognize from old ceremonies. An offering that was never properly given. "They killed one near the grove years ago," he says. "Left this behind. Thought it was enough." He presses the bundle into your hands, his grip firm, insistent. "If you go after it," he adds, "remember this isn't just a hunt. It's a conversation, and the forest is listening." You stand, the weight of the cloth heavy despite its size, and step away from the shelter. Behind you, the man returns to his fire, to his quiet sharpening, a survivor waiting for the forest to decide if it will ever truly let him go. As you walk back toward the village, his words echo in your mind, reshaping everything you thought you knew. The tiger is not just an animal reacting to threat, it is an answer to something unresolved. A living memory enforcing rules humans forgot the moment they believed themselves alone. And with that understanding settling deeper into you, you realize the path ahead will demand more than courage or strength. It will demand that you listen carefully enough to hear what the forest has been trying to say all along. Night arrives without ceremony, slipping over the forest like a held breath finally released. And you feel the change immediately. Not in temperature, but in attention, as though the trees themselves have turned their faces toward you. The fog returns, thicker than before, crawling low along the ground and wrapping around roots and stones, blurring edges until everything looks unfinished, half remembered. You move carefully, guided more by instinct than sight, every sense stretched thin and alert. The forest sounds different now. It does not sleep. It rearranges itself. Insects hum in uneven rhythms. Leaves whisper without wind. And somewhere far off a branch cracks slowly, deliberately, the sound too measured to be accident. You pause, letting the darkness settle, forcing yourself to breathe evenly. Fear, you know, has a sound, and you refuse to make it. As you step deeper between the trees, the feeling returns, stronger than before. That subtle pressure at the back of your neck, the unmistakable sensation of being watched, not hunted, observed. You resist the urge to look over your shoulder. Predators notice sudden movements. They read them the way you read tracks in mud. Your thoughts drift back to the hunter's words. to the idea that survival here is granted, not taken. The tiger is not circling you now, not closing distance in a way you can measure, yet its presence feels closer than if you could hear its breath. This is a different kind of threat, one that feeds on awareness itself. You step into a narrow stretch where the trees grow closer together, their branches interlacing overhead, turning the sky into a patchwork of darkness and faint starlight. The fog thickens here, dampening sound even further, and you realize with a quiet jolt that if something moved 10 steps away, you might never hear it. A soft rustle reaches you from the left. You stop instantly. The sound fades, then returns from the right, slightly closer. Your muscles tense, every instinct urging you to react, but you hold still. Movement now would betray uncertainty. Minutes stretch, elastic and heavy. Your mind fills the silence with imagined shapes. Stripes sliding between trunks, eyes reflecting nothing at all. You tell yourself not to guess, not to assume. Assumption is how people die in places like this. Then you feel it, unmistakable, a shift in the air, subtle but real, as though something large has moved just beyond the fog. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it, yet your body knows. Your pulse quickens despite your efforts, and you swallow hard, forcing calm back into your limbs. This is not pursuit. This is assessment. You understand then that the tiger is close enough to reach you if it wants to, close enough that the distance between life and death has shrunk to something invisible. The knowledge settles into you like cold water, sharp and clarifying. Panic would be useless here. Weapons would be meaningless. Only restraint matters. You lower yourself slowly onto one knee, not in surrender but in acknowledgement, making yourself smaller without appearing weak. You keep your gaze forward, unfocused, refusing to challenge what you cannot see. The forest responds with silence so complete it feels staged. Time loses its shape. You have no idea how long you remain there, suspended between motion and stillness, until gradually, almost imperceptibly, the pressure eases. The air feels lighter. The watching does not end, but it withdraws, retreating just far enough to let you breathe again. You rise slowly and back away, step by careful step, until the trees thin and the forest feels less intimate, less intent. Only then do you allow yourself to turn, heart pounding, sweat cooling on your skin. As you walk, you realize something that unsettles you more than fear ever could. The tiger did not need to announce itself. It did not need to scare you away. It wanted you to know that it could choose. By the time you reach the edge of the forest, the night feels older, heavier, as if it has absorbed what just passed between you and something unseen. You understand now that you are no longer just a visitor or a problem to be solved. You have been acknowledged. And somewhere behind you, moving soundlessly through fog and shadow, the tiger adjusts its path, satisfied for now, leaving you with the unmistakable certainty that this quiet encounter was not the end, but the beginning of something far more deliberate. You return at dawn with others this time, but the forest does not care about numbers, and you feel that indifference immediately, as the fog lifts just enough to reveal shapes without giving away distance. The men walk behind you in careful silence, each step measured, each breath controlled, because everyone here understands that noise is not just sound, it is intention made visible. The place for the first trap lies in a shallow valley where animal paths intersect, a natural corridor shaped by years of movement and habit. You chose it not because it feels safe, but because it feels inevitable. The ground here is soft enough to hold weight, the trees spaced just wide enough to hide steel and rope, and the wind moves strangely, circling instead of flowing, carrying scent in ways that refuse to obey logic. As you work, hands move with practiced precision. Stakes are driven deep, rope pulled taut, metal hidden beneath leaves and mud. No one speaks unless necessary. Words feel fragile here, like they might break something invisible if handled carelessly. You kneel, adjusting the tension, feeling the ground resist slightly, as if it knows what you are trying to do and is deciding whether to allow it. While you work, you sense it again. That familiar pressure, not close enough to panic, but close enough to focus every thought. The tiger is not watching from one place. You understand that now. It watches from the forest itself, from angles and shadows you cannot isolate. This trap is not a surprise to it. It is a question. When everything is set, you step back and study the work. On the surface, it looks convincing, invisible to careless eyes, deadly in its promise. Yet something about it feels wrong, not technically but spiritually, as if the forest has already noted the intrusion and adjusted its expectations accordingly. One of the men shifts his weight, a soft scrape of boot against stone, and the sound feels too loud. You glance at him sharply. He freezes, apology written across his face without a word. Fear here is contagious. You can feel it moving between bodies like a current. You signal for everyone to retreat, to take up positions farther back where sightlines open slightly. This is not an ambush meant to rush. It is a waiting game, and waiting in the forest requires humility. You sit against a tree, back straight, muscles loose but ready, and let time stretch. Minutes pass, then longer. The fog drifts lazily through the valley, rising and falling like breath. Somewhere a bird calls once, then falls silent. You notice how the forest seems to lean inward again, attention narrowing toward the trap. A shape moves at the edge of your vision. Not the tiger. Smaller. A deer, stepping cautiously into the corridor, nose twitching, ears rotating independently. It pauses, senses something wrong, and backs away slowly, choosing fear over hunger. You watch it disappear and feel a knot tighten in your stomach. Animals know. The hours drag on, patience wearing thin despite your efforts. Muscles ache from stillness. Thoughts wander dangerously toward doubt. You wonder if the tiger has already passed through earlier, inspected the trap, memorized its shape, and dismissed it as unworthy. Then it happens. Not a roar, not a charge, just a sudden, violent snap as tension releases too early, too cleanly. The trap triggers without resistance, metal biting into empty space. The sound echoes through the valley, sharp and accusing, and the forest seems to recoil slightly as if amused. You curse silently. A miscalculation. Small but unforgivable. The men stir, anxiety rising, whispers threatening to break discipline. You raise a hand, forcing stillness back into the group. But the damage is already done. The forest has heard. More importantly, the tiger has learned. The trap lies exposed now. Broken promise laid bare in mud and leaves. You approach carefully, heart heavy, examining the mechanism. There are marks nearby, faint but clear, deep impressions just outside the trigger zone. The tiger stood there, watched, waited. It did not step in. A cold realization settles over you. This was never about catching it unaware. The tiger allowed you to reveal your intentions, to show your hand. The failed trap is not a loss. It is an exchange. As you dismantle the remains, the forest grows quiet again. Not the tense silence of anticipation, but something colder, more final. You feel the balance shift, subtle but undeniable. The rules have changed. You signal for the group to withdraw. No one argues. Faces are pale, eyes avoiding the valley as if afraid to look too closely at what they failed to do. As you move away, you glance back one last time. For a brief moment, you think you see movement at the far edge of the trees, a ripple in the fog that does not belong to wind. Then it is gone. The forest closes ranks behind you, erasing footprints, swallowing evidence as if the morning never happened. But you know better. The first trap was not meant to catch the tiger. It was meant to teach you how far behind you already are. The blood does not come with a scream. It never does. It arrives quietly, slipping into the day the way fog slips into low ground, unnoticed until it is already everywhere. You learn about it from the way the village has gone still when you return, from the way no one meets your eyes, from the way a single woman sits on the dirt floor of her home, rocking slowly, her hands empty but stained. It was a small mistake, they tell you. Always is. A man went out alone before dusk, just to check a snare near the fields, just a few steps beyond where the forest officially begins. He had done it 100 times before. He believed the danger lived deeper in, where trees crowd together and paths disappear. He believed the rules still worked the way they used to. They found him near the edge of the brush, close enough that you can see the roofs of the village from where he fell. That detail stays with you more than anything else. The tiger did not take him into the forest. It did not hide what it did. It left the body where everyone would understand the message. You walk to the place in silence, each step heavier than the last. The ground here is trampled, grass pressed flat, soil darkened. There is no chaos in the marks, no sign of panic. The man did not run. Perhaps he never had the chance. Perhaps he understood too late that this was not a warning meant for him alone. You kneel and study the ground, forcing your hands to remain steady. The marks tell a story you wish you did not know how to read. One clean approach. One decisive strike. Minimal feeding. The tiger was not interested in sustenance. It was interested in correction. A murmur spreads behind you. Villagers gathered at a careful distance, fear binding them together more tightly than comfort ever could. You feel their eyes on your back, searching for reassurance, for certainty, for something solid in a world that has begun to feel negotiable. This is the moment, you realize, when stories turn into consequences. You remember the hunter's words, the way he spoke about mercy wrapped around warning. This time, there was no mercy. The forest has adjusted its tone, the failed trap, the exposure of intention, the disrespect of assuming speed over patience. All of it has added weight to the scale. The elders arrive slowly, their faces drawn, expressions grim but unsurprised. One of them kneels beside you and looks at the marks for a long time before speaking. The line has moved, he says quietly. What was once outside is now inside. You understand what he means. The boundary between village and forest, once respected by both sides, has shifted. The tiger has redrawn it. Closer, tighter, pressing its authority into human routine. This is not escalation born of rage. This is enforcement. Anger stirs among the younger men, sharp and unfocused. They talk about spears and fire, about driving the tiger back with noise and numbers. You let them speak, knowing that stopping them too quickly would only sharpen their resolve. When you finally raise your voice, it is calm, deliberate, carrying just far enough to cut through the noise. This isn't fear you're hearing, you tell them. It's instruction. Some of them bristle. Others look away. The truth does not land evenly. It never does. That night, the village does not sleep. Fires burn longer than usual. Doors are barred. Children are pulled close. Every sound beyond the huts feels amplified. Every rustle pregnant with meaning. You sit awake, listening, replaying every step that led here, searching for the precise moment when the balance tipped. Sometime after midnight, you hear it. Not close, not distant. A low, rolling sound that moves through the ground more than the air. Felt rather than heard. A tiger's call, not a roar of challenge, but a declaration. It passes through the village like a current, leaving silence behind it so complete it feels artificial. No one speaks after that. You realize then that the tiger is no longer responding to human action. It is setting the rhythm now, deciding when things happen, where, and to whom. The mistake was not the failed trap or the careless man. The mistake was believing the forest would wait. As dawn approaches, pale and reluctant, you stand and make a decision that feels both necessary and dangerous. This cannot continue, as scattered reactions and improvised defenses. Whatever comes next must be deliberate, respectful, and final. The blood on the ground has marked more than loss. It has marked a turning. And as the first light creeps back into the trees, you know the curse is fully awakened, not as superstition, but as consequence, and that every step from here forward will either restore balance or demand another payment. You hear the story again before dawn, not shouted, not announced, but carried from mouth to mouth in the low, careful way people speak when they are afraid of being overheard by more than human ears. It is an old story, older than the village itself, older than the names of the hills and streams. And it returns now because blood has reminded everyone why it was never meant to be forgotten. An elder asks you to sit by the fire, the one that has burned all night without warmth, only purpose. His voice is thin, but it does not tremble. This story has been waiting for a reason to be told again. They speak of the tiger's spirit, the guardian of boundaries, the keeper of balance between what humans take and what they are allowed to keep. In the old days, they say, the tiger was not an enemy. It was a judge. It walked the forest like a living law, unseen unless needed, silent unless summoned by violation. You listen, and the words settle heavily, not as myth, but as a framework the village once used to survive. People hunted, but they asked first. They took, but they gave back. When a tiger was killed, it was done with ritual, apology, and offering. Never near sacred ground, never in anger, never for pride. The elder's eyes lift to meet yours. That is not how it was done last time, he says. He tells you about the grove, the one hidden deep among old trees where the air always felt cooler, heavier, as if something listened there. Years ago, a tiger was wounded near that place, driven by fear into human territory, and hunted down not as necessity but as revenge. No words were spoken, no offerings made. The body was left where it fell. At the time, nothing happened. Crops grew, children were born. People convinced themselves the forest had accepted the outcome. But the forest does not forget. It postpones. You feel a tightening in your chest as the pieces align. The old tiger, the one with scars and patience, the one that kills without hunger, is not random. It is continuity. It is the forest remembering on behalf of those who cannot speak. Another elder adds softly that the spirit does not punish immediately. It waits until people forget the rules completely, until confidence replaces respect. Only then does it return, not as wrath, but as correction. You think of the way the tiger watched you in the fog, the way it assessed rather than attacked, the way it allowed the hunter to live as a message. This is not the behavior of an animal driven mad by hunger. This is something else entirely. The fire crackles, a brief sound that makes several people flinch. Fear has sharpened everyone's senses. You realize how fragile the village has become, how quickly belief has returned once survival demanded it. You cannot fight a spirit like an animal, the elder says, and you cannot bargain with it like a man. The words linger uncomfortably. You are here as a hunter, trained to track, to plan, to end threats cleanly. But this story asks something different of you. It suggests that skill alone will not be enough, that force might only deepen the imbalance already at work. As the sky begins to pale, you walk away from the fire and toward the edge of the village, needing space to think. The forest stands there, unchanged, indifferent to human reflection. Yet you feel its presence more clearly now, not as menace, but as structure, a system older and more consistent than any rule humans have written. You consider the failed trap, the blood at the forest edge, the tiger's deliberate choices. Everything points to the same truth. This is not a creature reacting to intrusion. It is enforcing a boundary that was crossed long ago. A quiet dread settles into you, not paralyzing, but clarifying. If this truly is a tiger bound to memory and balance, then killing it without acknowledgement will not end what has started. It may only invite the next correction. Behind you, the village stirs uneasily, caught between fear and tradition, between wanting safety and remembering the cost of ignoring the forest's language. Ahead of you, the trees wait, patient and unreadable. You understand now that whatever happens next must address more than the tiger's body. It must address the debt beneath it. And as the sun finally rises, thin and colorless, you know that the path forward will force you to choose between ending a life and ending a cycle, and that the forest will judge the difference far more carefully than any human ever could. The fog returns in the late afternoon, not thick enough to blind, but dense enough to soften certainty, and you feel the shift in the forest before anyone else notices it. The air grows heavier, sound traveling shorter distances, as if the world has tightened its grip. You move alone this time, not out of pride, but out of understanding. Too many intentions at once confuse the forest. It listens best when addressed clearly. You step into the familiar corridor where paths cross and scents overlap, the place where animals slow down and decide. The ground is quiet here, leaves barely disturbed, as if even the smaller creatures have chosen absence. You stand still, letting your presence settle, not hiding it, not announcing it, simply existing within the space. That is when you see it. Not charging, not stalking, standing. The tiger emerges from the fog without sound, its body resolving piece by piece as if the forest is deciding how much of it you are allowed to see. Massive shoulders, scarred flank, the slow rise and fall of breath. Its eyes fix on you, steady and unblinking, and in that gaze you feel no hunger, no rage, only recognition. You do not reach for a weapon. The thought passes through your mind and leaves just as quickly. This moment is too precise for instinctive gestures. You stand where you are, feet planted, shoulders relaxed, refusing to appear either dominant or submissive. Balance, you remember. Everything here is about balance. The tiger takes a step forward, then stops. The fog curls around its legs, blurring the ground beneath it, and you realize how easily it could vanish again if it chose to. The power in that restraint makes your skin prickle. This creature does not need to prove itself. Your heart beats steadily, loud in your ears, but you keep your breathing slow. You let your eyes soften, not staring directly, not looking away. The forest seems to lean in, attentive. In that suspended moment, you understand something with startling clarity. This tiger is not measuring distance. It is measuring intent. You think of the grove, of the offering that was never made, of the blood spilled without acknowledgement. You think of the man who died near the fields, of the message written in restraint and precision. Standing here now, you feel as though the forest has brought you forward, not as prey or hunter, but as witness. The tiger lowers its head slightly, just enough to make the scars along its neck visible. Old wounds, healed badly, memories carried in flesh. A quiet anger tightens in your chest, not at the animal, but at the hands that taught it to remember pain this way. You take a slow step forward, stopping well short of any challenge, and gently place the small cloth bundle on the ground between you. The faded red fabric darkens as the fog dampens it. The symbols barely visible but present an acknowledgement, not an apology, not a demand. The tiger does not move. Time stretches thin, almost fragile. You feel as though the wrong breath could shatter the moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, the tiger shifts its weight and steps back, not retreating, repositioning. The message is subtle but unmistakable. This is not enough. The tiger turns its head slightly, eyes never leaving you. And then, without sound, it fades back into the fog, its body dissolving into shadow until there is nothing left but space and the echo of attention withdrawn. You stand there long after it is gone, the forest slowly reclaiming its ordinary sounds. A bird calls, leaves stir. Life resumes cautiously, as if testing whether it is safe to breathe again. You exhale, tension draining from your muscles, and realize your hands are trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of what just passed between you and something older than your understanding. That encounter was not mercy, nor was it threat. It was a boundary drawn clearly in silence. As you turn back toward the village, you know with certainty that killing the tiger now, without addressing the deeper imbalance, would not end what has begun. It would only prove that humans have learned nothing at all. And somewhere behind you, unseen but fully aware, the tiger continues to move through the forest, waiting to see whether you will choose force or whether you will finally learn how to listen. You do not sleep that night, and neither does the man everyone calls the king of tiger hunters. He waits for you near the old storehouse at the edge of the village, where lantern light barely holds back the dark. His silhouette rigid, familiar, shaped by years of standing between fear and action. When you approach, he does not greet you. He studies your face the way he studies tracks, looking for signs you might not even know you are leaving behind. "You saw it," he says at last. You nod. There is no point pretending otherwise. News travels quickly here, carried not by words but by changes in posture, by the way people avoid certain paths, by the way the forest seems to press closer when decisions are delayed. He exhales slowly, the sound heavy with restraint. This is a man who has ended more hunts than most people can name, who has stood over fallen tigers without hesitation, without ceremony. To him, danger has always been something to be solved, not discussed. "You should have taken the shot," he says, not accusing, simply stating what he believes is obvious. You meet his gaze and shake your head. It wasn't offering itself. His jaw tightens. For a moment you think anger will surface, sharp and immediate, but instead you see something else flicker there. Doubt, unwelcome and quickly suppressed. He turns away, pacing once, then stops, fists clenched at his sides. "I've spent my life making sure people sleep at night," he says quietly. "I don't believe in curses. I believe in teeth and claws." "And memory," you reply. That makes him turn back, his eyes narrow. Animals don't remember like that. You choose your words carefully. Maybe not like us, but they remember pain, territory, patterns. We taught this one to watch instead of rush. Silence stretches between you, thick and uncomfortable. Around you, the village listens without pretending otherwise. Doors are cracked open, shadows lean closer. This argument matters more than either of you want to admit. He gestures toward the forest. Every night we wait, someone dies. You saw what it did near the fields. How many more before your listening pays off? The question lands hard. You do not deflect it. You carry it. Feel its weight, then answer honestly. And if we kill it the way we always do, how many more after that? He laughs once, short and humorless. You think another one will come. I think the forest will answer again, you say. Maybe not with a tiger. Maybe with something worse. The king of tiger hunters studies you for a long moment. This is not the first time someone has challenged his certainty, but it is the first time you see him hesitate without denying it. He knows this forest. He has watched it change. He has felt the way silence here has grown heavier over the years. I don't hunt for pride, he says finally. I hunt because leaving things unfinished gets people killed. You step closer, lowering your voice. Then finish it properly. His brow furrows. Properly means dead. Properly means balance. You counter. Right now, we are reacting. It's setting the terms. We need to decide whether this ends as another body or as an answer. The lantern flickers, casting shifting shadows across his face, carving lines deeper, making him look older than his years. He rubs a hand over his mouth, thinking, weighing instincts honed over decades against something far less tangible. You're asking me to hesitate, he says. I'm asking you to choose, you reply. Because hesitation and choice are not the same thing. The village remains silent, caught between two truths it cannot reconcile easily. Kill the tiger, and maybe the fear stops. Maybe. Leave it alive, and risk more blood in the hope that something deeper can be repaired. At last, the king of tiger hunters nods once, slowly. One night, he says, one more chance to do this your way. After that, I end it. You accept the condition without relief. This is not a victory. It is a narrowing of time. As he walks away, the weight of the agreement settles into you. Tomorrow night will decide everything. Not just the fate of the tiger, but the story this forest will remember next. And as the lantern light fades and the village retreats into uneasy darkness, you feel the forest listening again, aware that humans are arguing over its rules, and preparing patiently to respond. The night comes slower than you expect, stretching itself thin as if even time is reluctant to move forward. Clouds drift across the sky in heavy layers, dimming the moon until it becomes little more than a pale stain above the trees. This is the hour the forest prefers, when edges blur and certainty weakens, when every choice feels heavier than it did in daylight. You walk back into the forest with the king of tiger hunters and a small group of men, fewer than before. No one argues about the number. Too many bodies complicate intent. Too much noise confuses the ground. Tonight is not about force, it is about closure. The place you choose is near the old grove, close enough that the air feels different, cooler, thicker, carrying a weight that presses gently against your chest. You feel it immediately, the same way you felt it the first time you stepped into the fog. This place remembers. The trees here stand older, their roots breaking the surface like knuckles, gripping soil that has absorbed more than rain. The men spread out quietly, taking positions without being told. Years of fear have trained them better than commands ever could. You and the king stand slightly apart, both watching the same darkness for different reasons. You sense his tension, coiled and contained, the kind that comes from a lifetime of decisive action forced to wait. You kneel near the base of a wide tree and place the cloth bundle on the ground, opening it carefully. The faded red fabric looks almost brown now, the symbols barely visible in the dim light, but they are enough. You add to it a small offering of food, placed not as bait, but as acknowledgement. Your movements are slow, deliberate, meant to be seen. The forest does not react immediately. It never does. Silence settles again, deep and expectant, wrapping around you like a held breath. Somewhere far off, an owl calls once, then goes quiet. Even the insects seem to withdraw. Minutes pass. Then more. The tension grows. Not sharp, but heavy, sinking into muscles and bone. You feel the king shift slightly beside you, his patience thinning, his hand tightening on his weapon. He does not speak. He does not need to. You know what he is thinking. If this fails, there will be no more waiting. Then the air changes. It is subtle but unmistakable, the same shift you felt before. A quiet rearrangement of space that signals presence without announcing it. The forest seems to lean inward, attention narrowing, focusing. You straighten slowly, heart steady but loud in your ears. From between the trees, the tiger appears. It does not rush. It does not stalk. It steps into the edge of the clearing as if answering a call. Its massive body outlined faintly by moonlight breaking through the clouds. Scars trace pale lines along its flank and neck, marks of old violence that have never fully faded. Its eyes move first to the offering, then to you, then briefly to the men hidden among the trees. You feel the king tense, feel the instinct surge through him like a current. This is the distance he knows. This is the moment he is trained for. You raise a hand slightly, not commanding, just asking, and to your surprise, he holds. The tiger lowers its head and sniffs the ground near the cloth. Its movements are controlled, careful, as if every step carries weight beyond physics. It does not eat. It does not touch the offering. It simply acknowledges it, then lifts its gaze again. The forest holds its breath. This is the narrowest moment, the point where every path converges. You sense that the tiger is not deciding whether to attack. It is deciding whether this exchange is complete. You take one slow step forward and stop, keeping the distance intact. You do not bow. You do not challenge. You stand as you are, a human acknowledging a rule that predates you both. The tiger's tail flicks once, a small, restrained motion. Its ears shift, catching sounds you cannot hear. For a long, suspended second, nothing happens at all. Then the tiger turns. Not abruptly, not in retreat. It turns with the deliberate grace of something that has made a choice and does not need to justify it. It walks back into the trees, its form dissolving into shadow, the forest closing around it as if welcoming something home. Only when it is fully gone do you breathe again. Around you, the men remain frozen, stunned by the quiet finality of what they have witnessed. The king lowers his weapon slowly, his expression unreadable. The forest begins to release its hold, sounds returning cautiously, life resuming in small, tentative ways. This is not an ending in the way people like to imagine endings. No body lies on the ground. No victory is claimed. But something has shifted, something fundamental. As you gather the offering and step back from the grove, you feel a strange, unfamiliar sensation settle over you. Relief, threaded with responsibility. Tomorrow will tell whether the forest has accepted this answer. Tonight, all you can do is leave the place as you found it and trust that listening, for once, was not mistaken for weakness. Morning comes without fog for the first time in days, and that alone feels wrong, as if the forest has stripped itself bare on purpose, exposing everything it usually keeps hidden. The light is thin but honest, sliding between trunks, touching the ground without hesitation. You wake before anyone calls your name, heart already alert, listening for a sound that does not arrive. No screams, no hurried footsteps, no name carried on a breath that breaks halfway through. The village stirs cautiously, like an animal testing a wounded limb. Doors open inch by inch. People step outside and stop, scanning the tree line as if expecting the night to step back out of it. When nothing does, whispers begin. Uncertain, fragile. You walk to the edge of the fields where the last blood was spilled. The ground is undisturbed. No new tracks cut through the soil. No signs drag toward the trees. The boundary holds. Behind you, the king of tiger hunters joins you, his boots stopping beside yours. He studies the earth in silence, eyes sharp, trained to find what is wrong. The longer he looks, the more his jaw tightens, not with anger, but with something closer to disbelief. "It should have come," he says finally. "This is when it usually does." You nod. "That's why it didn't." He exhales slowly. For the first time since you met him, his certainty does not immediately rebuild itself. He is standing in unfamiliar ground. Not physically, but in thought, and you can feel how uncomfortable that is for a man who has always trusted action over interpretation. The day stretches on. Livestock is checked. Paths are walked. Nothing is missing. Nothing is taken. Each uneventful hour feels heavier than the last, as if the village is afraid to trust what it is being given. By midday, the elders gather again, not in panic this time, but in cautious acknowledgement. No one celebrates, no one smiles. They know better. This forest does not respond well to victory. You tell them exactly what happened at the grove, without embellishment, without claiming success. You speak of the offering, the silence, the tiger's choice to turn away. You do not call it mercy. You do not call it defeat. You call it recognition. Some of them nod. Others remain skeptical, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Fear does not dissolve easily. It needs repetition, proof, time. A young man asks the question everyone else avoids. So what now? You answer without hesitation. Now we stop pretending this is over. The king looks at you sharply. But you continue. The forest accepted an answer, you say. That doesn't mean it will accept the same mistake twice. That lands deeper than comfort ever could. Rules return not as superstition but as structure. Boundaries are redrawn in daylight. Fields nearest the forest are abandoned. Paths are shifted. No one goes alone anymore, not out of fear, but out of respect. That evening, you walk the tree line one last time before night falls. The forest feels different. Not softer, not safer, but settled. Like an argument that has ended without forgiveness but with understanding. You stop near the place where the tiger first appeared to you, half expecting to feel that familiar pressure again. You do not. Instead, there is only space, open and quiet, the kind of silence that does not watch you back. You realize then that the confrontation everyone expected never came because it already happened. Not in violence, but in restraint. When you return to the village, the king is waiting. He does not speak at first. Then, finally, he nods once. I've killed a lot of tigers, he says. This is the first time I feel like not killing one did something. You do not answer. There is nothing to add. As night settles again, gentler this time, you understand that survival did not come from strength or cleverness, but from learning when not to push, when not to prove, when to let the forest finish a sentence humans interrupted long ago. And deep within the trees, beyond sight and sound, something ancient moves on, not as a threat, not as a promise, but as a reminder that balance, once acknowledged, does not need to announce itself to be real. The tiger is found at dawn, not where anyone expects, and not the way stories usually end. No alarms wake the village. No screams cut the air. A single boy, sent to check the upper ridge where the land rises and the forest thins, returns pale and silent, pointing instead of speaking, as if words would be too loud for what he has seen. You walk with the king of tiger hunters, neither of you rushing, both already sensing that this moment carries a different weight. The path climbs gently, stones slick with morning dew, grass bent under something heavy that passed through hours earlier. The forest feels open here, exposed to sky, stripped of its usual secrecy. Then you see it. The tiger lies on its side near a fallen tree, its massive body still, stripes dulled by dust and light. No blood stains the ground. No traps hold it. No bullets mark its skull. Its eyes are closed, not in fear, not in pain, but in a stillness that feels chosen rather than forced. You stop a few steps away, heart pounding despite the calm of the scene. The king moves closer, slow, careful, every instinct screaming that a tiger is never harmless, never finished until proven otherwise. He studies the body, searching for wounds, for signs of struggle. There's nothing, he says quietly. You kneel, feeling the earth cool beneath your hands. The tiger's chest no longer rises. Its body is warm, but only just. The warmth of something that has not been gone long. You notice the scars again, clearer now, mapping a life lived under pressure, pain carried forward rather than forgotten. This is not the end anyone expected. Villagers gather at a distance, whispering, afraid to come too close, afraid to believe what they are seeing. Some cross themselves, others bow their heads. No one cheers, no one claims victory. The silence here feels earned. The king straightens slowly, removing his hat, an instinctive gesture of respect he does not remember learning. "It walked out," he says. "Climbed this far on its own." You nod. The tiger chose where to stop. The elders arrive last, their faces unreadable. One of them kneels and touches the ground near the tiger's head, murmuring words so old they no longer translate cleanly. Not a prayer, not a farewell, an acknowledgement. They speak among themselves, quietly, and you hear the word closure repeated, not as relief, but as responsibility fulfilled. The tiger did not die in the forest's depths or under human weapons. It came to the edge of sky and earth and ended its part in the cycle where it could be seen, where it could be remembered. You realize then that this was never about punishment. The tiger did not seek endless blood. It sought recognition of a wrong, acknowledgement of a boundary broken. Once that was given, once balance was addressed, it no longer had a role to play. The king looks at you, something heavy and unfamiliar in his eyes. "If we'd hunted it," he says slowly, "we'd have called this justice. And we'd have been wrong." You reply. No one argues. The body is not taken apart. No trophies are claimed. The elders insist it remain intact, returned to the forest properly, with care, with ritual, not as a threat removed, but as a guardian released. Men who once spoke eagerly of killing now work in silence, movements careful, almost gentle. As the sun rises higher, light washes over the clearing, and for a brief moment the tiger's stripes seem to sharpen, vivid and alive, before settling again into stillness. You feel a tightness in your throat you do not try to hide. This death does not feel like an ending carved by force. It feels like a chapter closed by understanding. And as the forest breathes around you, unafraid, unwatchful, you know that something ancient has stepped aside, leaving behind not fear, but a lesson written without words, one that will linger long after the body is returned to the trees. The village does not celebrate the days that follow, and that restraint feels deliberate, almost instinctive, as if everyone understands that noise would cheapen what has been given. Life resumes slowly, cautiously, each movement measured against memory. The forest remains where it has always been, unchanged in shape, yet profoundly altered in presence, like a listener who has finally decided to stop interrupting. Still, the consequences do not vanish overnight. Strange things begin to surface, subtle at first, easy to dismiss if you are eager to believe everything is finished. A man wakes from sleep unable to explain why his dreams feel heavier than before, filled with images of fog and eyes watching from just beyond reach. A woman swears she hears footsteps near the edge of the fields at dusk, only to find nothing when she looks. Children grow quiet when playing too close to the trees, stopping on their own without being called back. No one dies, no blood is spilled. But the forest is not entirely silent either. You walk the paths daily, not hunting, not tracking, but observing. The ground tells you the truth before people do. There are no fresh tiger tracks, no heavy impressions pressing the earth into submission. Yet the forest still carries a memory of weight, a faint echo of something that once moved with authority and has now stepped away. The elders gather again after a week, their expressions thoughtful rather than fearful. One of them speaks what everyone else has been circling around. "The debt is paid," he says. But payment does not erase history. You understand. Balance is not forgetfulness. It is awareness carried forward. They decide, together, to change things permanently. The grove is marked, not with signs or fences, but with agreement. No one enters without purpose. No one takes without offering. Hunting resumes farther from the village, slower, more selective. The forest edge is allowed to breathe again, given space to exist without constant intrusion. You notice how these decisions settle into daily life, reshaping habits quietly. People return home earlier. Fires are kept lower. Stories told at night change in tone, less about conquest, more about caution. The tiger's death does not become a tale of triumph. It becomes a reference point, spoken of with respect and unease. The way people speak of storms that taught them where not to build. The king of tiger hunters visits you one evening, sitting beside you without ceremony. He has been quieter lately, his authority no longer questioned, but no longer unquestioned either. He stares into the dark where the forest begins, eyes searching for something that is no longer there. "I don't feel watched anymore," he says. "That's new." You nod. "So is the responsibility." He gives a short, thoughtful laugh. "I used to think ending danger meant ending a life. Now I'm not so sure." The words hang between you, honest and unresolved. This experience has not turned him into a believer in spirits or curses. It has made him aware of limits, of moments where strength must pause long enough to listen. As days pass without incident, the village relaxes incrementally, but no one forgets. Fear has transformed into vigilance, into respect sharpened by memory rather than panic. That shift feels more stable, more durable. One afternoon, you find a set of old footprints near the ridge where the tiger was found, half erased by rain, barely visible. Not new, not threatening. A reminder left behind by the land itself. You do not follow them, you do not need to. You understand now that the forest does not promise peace. It offers equilibrium, conditional and alive. Break it, and something will answer. Honor it, and life continues quietly, without spectacle. As you prepare to leave, packing what little you brought with you, the village gathers one last time. There are no speeches, no thanks spoken aloud. Gratitude here is shown by change, not words. When you walk toward the path that leads away, you pause at the edge of the trees. The forest stands open, neither inviting nor forbidding. For the first time since you arrived, it feels indifferent to your presence. That indifference feels earned. You step forward, knowing that while the tiger is gone, the lesson it carried remains, woven now into the way people walk, speak, and listen. The curse did not end with death. It ended with understanding. And as the village settles into a future shaped by that truth, the forest holds its silence, not as threat, but as agreement kept. You leave at first light, when the village is still half asleep and the forest wears its morning calm like a practiced expression. No one walks with you to the edge. That, too, feels right. Some departures are meant to be quiet, unmarked, allowed to pass without ceremony so they can settle properly into memory. The path away from the village feels different under your feet, firmer, less reluctant, as if the land itself has released a held tension. Birds call openly now, not in warning, but in routine. The air smells clean, washed by night, carrying none of that metallic edge you noticed when you first arrived. You realize how deeply that smell had embedded itself into your senses, how much your body had been bracing without permission. As you walk, images return to you in fragments. The fog swallowing the path, the claw marks in wet earth, the tiger standing still, measuring you, the failed trap snapping shut on nothing, blood at the forest edge, silence at the grove, and finally, the body lying beneath open sky, untouched by violence, finished not by force, but by completion. You understand now that the forest never needed a hero. It needed a witness. At a bend in the path, you stop and look back one last time. From here, the village is barely visible. Roofs peeking through trees, smoke beginning to rise from morning fires. Life continues, quieter but steadier, shaped by lines redrawn with care. Somewhere within those routines, the story of the tiger will be told again and again, not to frighten children, but to remind adults where certainty ends. You think of the king of tiger hunters, of the way his hands lowered when there was nothing left to aim at, of the respect that settled into his silence. He will go on hunting when necessary. The forest knows this. So do you. Balance does not demand innocence. It demands awareness. The path leads you onward, away from the trees and into open ground. And with each step you feel the forest loosen its attention, not in dismissal, but in acceptance. You were part of something here, briefly, precisely, and now your role is finished. You carry no trophies, no proof, only understanding, heavy and quiet, the kind that changes how you stand, how you listen, how you decide when to act and when to wait. It is not a comfortable thing to carry, but it is an honest one. Far behind you, deep within the trees, nothing moves to mark your leaving. No eyes follow, no breath shifts in the fog. The forest does not need to remember you. It remembers the lesson. And as you disappear down the road, the land holds its shape, its silence intact, not because it has been conquered, but because, for once, it was heard. The story you've just heard may be nothing more than a legend. Thank you for staying until the very end. Hit subscribe, drop a heart, and join me in keeping the flame alive for stories that never die.